Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, the show where the inner warrior shines in their light. Presented by Praxis 33, the company that aligns your thoughts, goals, and actions to create your best life. I'm your host, Daryl Snow. And as a coach and a consultant, I help people reignite their passion and connect with their purpose. And today, we're talking with a colleague of mine that I truly admire and respect, Sonna Johns. Sonna is a truth embodiment coach, an empowerment mentor, and she is intuitively guided to help women reclaim their radiance, inner power, and sacred truth. And Sonna helps women celebrate the remembrance of who they truly are so they can return home to their body, heart, and spirit. Sana, I appreciate you joining me and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daryl. I am happy to be here today.
I appreciate it. As someone who you were, a trainer for Fortune 500 companies, you were a high model spokesperson for companies like Comcast. You've done a lot of international stuff. I don't imagine that's where you started. Where did you get your beginnings?
Oh, wow. That's a good question, Daryl. I have been on a lot of these. Nobody asked me that. I just wanted to be a spokesperson. I wanted to use my voice at a very young age. And I think I might have gotten into a small pageant at the time. And then I was Miss this and Miss that, small titles, nothing major or anything. And then I just wanted to get more into speaking. And then I started doing the auto show circuit, which is a really big deal in Michigan. I'm in the Detroit area and everything is automotive here. So I started doing that circuit and being a product specialist and then speaking out, traveling the country. And then from there, I started doing, more of the training videos, the TV commercials. And then from there, facilitation, training, teaching executives, presentation skills, sales skills, all types of things. So yeah, that's kind of where it started.
Were you raised and born in Michigan?
I was, yeah.
So you were around the cars, as a child. In school, were you kind of like the person who gravitated towards the debate and the drama teams, or did you kind of just meander your path through there? What was your childhood kind of interests?
I wasn't really a big debater. And I'm still not, although if I do have to speak up about a topic, I will, if I feel strongly. But I don't love the debate and the arguing. Like I've always been like really grounded and assured of my thoughts and my values. And I like to observe. I've always been an observer. However, the last 5 to 10 years, I've definitely stepped it up. I mean, when I was younger, I wish I knew a lot of this stuff, but that's part of the journey, right?
Don't we all? Yeah.
So I would say I was probably more quiet. I was bullied in school to some degree. That was, something that I dealt with because I was confident in myself. And sometimes the more confident you are now, just because I say I'm confident doesn't mean my life's perfect and it's been great. Like I just have that inner confidence about myself from my mom. And so the more comfortable that you are, sometimes people are more intimidated or they just want to find something wrong. So, high school, I had some of the bullying going on and that type of thing. But, I got through it, head up, shoulders back, chin up.
Mean girl syndrome is a thing. If you're not one of them because you do have confidence, then they do want to pick on you. It's interesting that you chose as a quiet individual yet confident individual to go in such a field that is limelight. I mean, car modeling, national spokesperson, corporate training, they're all fields that are dominated by men as far as corporate training and things like that go. So you definitely have to come with confidence and reassurance and some volume. You can't just be meek and mild. So you mentioned your mom. What what was it about her that instilled that in you?
My mom had a lot of confidence herself. Like she was self-assured, she was very intuitive, she was very observant, she was sharp, and she just had strong morals and kind of raised me that way. And she was open. We weren't really restricted about things. A lot of times people grow up in households where certain things are restricted, regarding sex, regarding speaking up, regarding opinions. My mom was very open. I'm very blessed in that regard. So I have a lot of admiration for my mom. Like I give her all the credit, really, and God, obviously, for all the strength that I've been able to have. And to take it a step further, my grandmother, so speaking of warrior, okay, my grandmother was a true warrior. She was in the Turkish massacre in 1915, and she was one of the 400,000 over within the 15 or 1.5 million that were in that massacre. So she actually escaped, and she was a slave underground. She was 17, and so she had that warrior blood in her, which I think, genetically, it's all in our line, right? My mom had it, and then I have it. So that's where I think I get my warrior spirit, hence the show, right?
Yes. And it is interesting because through this show, I've recently learned, and you would think that this would be common knowledge, but when females are born, they're already born with the eggs that they're going to produce with. So the lineage is already passed down from grandmother to mother to child and so on. And so having that DNA type in there is actually a real thing. It's not just platitude. So that's really kind of an interesting side point. But you got into the corporate world as a teenager in high school, going to college. Did you say, corporate world, that's where I want to be? Was that always your passion?
You know what? It really wasn't. I liked training, I liked teaching, I liked working with people. I was really good at it. It's one of my strengths. So I just fell into the corporate world. I had an opportunity to interview for a contractual job with General Motors specifically, and then I worked for GMAC Mortgage, and then I worked for a lot of other companies sideline. But I had to get certified in certain things in order to teach them. And I just had that good rapport. But it wasn't that I went after the corporate world, but it was a great foundation for me because it's helped me with a lot of other things. And so then when I got married, uh, within that time frame, I ended up getting divorced. But after that, then I landed my job with Comcast, which was huge. It was a huge thing for me because it was a 2-year contract that was exclusive to be their spokesperson. So after I got that, which was right out of my divorce, which was a godsend really, because I was starting all over, I had to reinvent myself, which was really difficult with 2 small young kids. And what happened is after the Comcast job, then everybody wanted to use my voice for other things. So, and it's all automotive, a lot of automotive type things, but I ended up getting more work from that. So I kind of just fell into some of these things. Life, I always look at it like it's a branch. You never know. You start somewhere and it leads you here, and then you go there and it leads you here. And, it's just such a journey.
Yeah, our destination is forward, but the pathway is never straight. And if it is, it's usually a wrong path that you're on. So it's interesting to see how our life weaves and turns and to get us where we go. You mentioned being married. How long were you and your husband together?
We were together 13 years.
Okay. So right around the time you started right out of college, kind of met your husband, you had mentioned off camera, and we're not going to go into great detail, but you mentioned that it was not all sunshine and roses. Like people look at your life from the outside and they say Fortune 500 trainer, national spokesperson, really confident, but the thorns went with the roses too, right?
Absolutely. Yes. All along the way through my whole life, really. I mean, when I was working in the corporate world as a trainer, I don't usually share the story either, but when I was a corporate trainer, I loved my job. It was one of my most favorite things I've ever done because I would get a group of individuals from the executive or even the sales representatives from General Motors, and I would train them for 10 days. And then I could see how they were in the beginning of the class and the end of the class. And it was so rewarding and fulfilling to see how everybody's confidence had jumped and people felt good in front of a room. And so I just love that. And I actually ended up getting pregnant with my first child while I was working that job. So I took a leave of absence. And when I wanted to come back, I'm all ready to come back after I don't know how old my son was at the time or how many months, but I had my fellow trainer because it was a male and female team when we did this training. And he happened to call me and he said, "Hey, I'm really sorry." And I go, "About what?" And he said, "Well, didn't you hear?" And I said, "Well, no." And he said, "Oh, you're not working at the educational department anymore." And I'm like, "What?" I didn't hear it. And evidently, the man who hired me retired, and a new person came in a woman. And the other women there, long story short, decided to get together and say, Sonna is not good at her job. She's not sufficient. Yeah, and I had all kinds of, testimonial letters being sent in. I mean, they knew that I was getting better at what I was doing, and it took me a while. I mean, there's a learning curve with the whole training thing, but I got fired. They let me go. And I was devastated because it was such a great job. But I was so busy being a mom because my son was really young that I kind of let it go. But that was a real kick in the teeth. So that was like the beginning of, even when I was 14, I lied about my age because I wanted to work. I love to work. I love people. I love sales. And I had a couple of friends from high school, or yeah, well, I was 14, so it was junior high. They called in and they told the owner of the store that I lied about my age and that I shouldn't be on staff. So I lost my job. So
Wow.
that actually happened another time too. So 3 times I had people interject and have me lose my position.
And most of that, I would presume, would be because you were a confident woman doing your job really well and you enjoyed it, and other people were jealous of it and sabotaged you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what it is. Yeah. So, but again, all these things make us stronger. I am an Aries, and I'm very resilient, and plus I have my warrior blood in me. But I wasn't going to let it get me down. Like your story as well. Like these, and it's all relative. But my story could be a lot worse in certain respects. But I just kept getting up and getting back on track without letting anything really get me down. And I'm still like that today because I still have things being thrown at me and people trying to get me off path.
So how old were you at this time frame of your life, roughly?
I would say about 28.
So fairly young still, and new marriage, new child. What was your husband's reaction to that?
Well, I mean, he felt bad, and it was a long time ago, so I don't remember all the details. But he did feel bad. But like we had a new child, so we were kind of wrapped up in raising a small child. So
And so did you at that point have your second child, or decide right back into finding work? Did you look at it as an opportunity to expand your family, or did you like it's time to go back to work?
no, well, I always worked, even though I had my son, but I did contract jobs. So I would do automotive modeling. I mean, it's not high fashion modeling, but it's modeling in the cars. It's being a mom, or a lot of times I would be a mom with the minivan, or, the new car seats that they came out, or, I mean, I did all types of things, but the type of work that's in the Detroit area, you can be shorter and more realistic, more of what they call a commercial model. So that's really what I was. I wasn't a high fashion model. So I just started doing odds and end jobs like that. And I worked while I had my son, but again, it was contracted. So I wasn't working every single day, all day long. And then I decided to have a second child. And I actually did work when I was pregnant. So I would be doing these minivan ads, like the Chrysler minivan, and, sound systems and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm 6 months pregnant. They're like, no, we want you. We want you. We want a mom. So, that's what we did.
That's funny. Most people don't feel like they're able to do that type of work when they're 6 months pregnant. So I'm glad you found a way. But even through now, you said you were divorced, and then COVID hit, which really shut down a lot of the corporate training, shut down a lot of the in person stuff. Uh, you said your life kind of transitioned during this period. What was the spark that transitioned into this next phase of your life, being an embodiment coach, now working with women?
Well, if I can back up a little bit, because I started to get into coaching when I was in a serious relationship. And within that time frame, this is before COVID, I started doing, they're not really support groups, but I guess for lack of a better word, circle groups where we would have a topic of discussion for self-help, self-love, dealing with toxic relationships, dealing with toxic family members. How do we do self-love? How do we do self-care? And what I would do is I would get these women and men, there were men there too, together, and we would do everybody would sign an NDA because it was very private. And I mean, they were powerful discussions. This was in person. I did this prior to COVID. And because at the time I was in a relationship where I didn't have to worry financially, I thought, you know what, I want to give back because I can. So I'm going to start these groups and give back to, there was a certain charity at the time. They're not around anymore, but it was called Project Beautiful. And it was for, families that needed, the lower income families in the city and that type of thing. I mean, it was all different types of things. But so all of the money would go towards Project Beautiful. But I didn't realize that as I was doing these groups, that these people would be the very people that started my business during COVID. Because when COVID hit, we couldn't do the live groups anymore. And I really wanted to do my coaching. But at the same time, I was also going through a very life changing event in my life, which I like to call my Mount Everest, because it is by far the most difficult thing I've ever had to endure and overcome throughout my whole life. And while I was in this relationship, I was planning to be a coach, help people, give back. And long story short, I had to make a decision literally 2 weeks before quarantine. I didn't know it was going to be quarantine. And I decided that I needed to move on in my life and that the relationship that I was in was not resonating with my soul. So, and we can talk a little bit more about that, but as far as how the work went and how COVID kind of, shifted everything, I started working while I was healing. At the same time, I was coaching other people that were going through difficult times. And these were the people that had originated from these support groups. So it was kind of nice. I was working during COVID, and everything that I was learning about myself and spirituality as I had gone into this deep self-reflection and meditation every day for 3 months, literally, I was bringing this energy and this healing to my clients. So it was really a beautiful thing. And the strange thing is that, I was really going through a major shift within myself because I had walked away from a very significant relationship and also what I thought my life was going to be. Like I had this dream of what my life was going to be, but it didn't really work out that way. So I had to switch gears and try to give back. And sometimes when we're going through our own healing, we actually can be the best support for others, because it also fills our heart. So I learned so much through all of the things that I went through in my life because I worked in the corporate world too, which we didn't really mention, but I was in the corporate world as an account manager and in sales for 10 years when I was divorced. So I had gotten divorced after 13 years. And then I ended up getting a job in the corporate world. So in the beginning, I was training the corporate people. And then years later, I was actually one of the corporate people. So, I learned about all the politics of the business, the pressures. I had a really hardcore boss at the time. He was good to me, but there was a lot of pressure. And I was a single mom. So that was a point in my life where I could learn about burnout and how women and even men that we don't know how to handle our stress and how do we channel those things? So then I thought, okay, I know about the corporate world. I know about the pressures of it. And then I started, training people during the COVID, when we were in COVID, that were in the corporate world. So yeah, I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I have this wealth of information. And this is sometimes why I have a hard time telling my story because I've done so much. But that's what also makes me good at what I do because I've been in the corporate sector. I know about what that's like, about the divorce. I know about the difficult relationships. And so I wanted to take all of that and package it up and be able to share this wisdom to help people that had lost their power. Because I did lose my power in the corporate world. My health was suffering because I was under so much pressure with sales and having to manage accounts. And then, I got into this relationship and those were different pressures. I mean, not in the beginning, but, as time went on, there was a lot of dynamics. It was a very high level relationship. When I say high level, so he was, high profile is what I mean to say. And so we lived a big life. I lived a really big life. And, that came with a whole other set of life lessons and choosing myself. And so when I was in quarantine, that's when I really dug deep because I had decided that I had to leave the relationship.
Yeah, and if we don't if we just do the surface level work, we can kind of live with whatever's going on around us. But when we start to do the deeper work, then those things become things that we can no longer tolerate in our life, and we do have to move on. You mentioned the spiritual aspect to your healing. When you were raised as a young woman, were you did you consider yourself religious or spiritual? Because there is a difference.
Right. Well, it's a good question, and it's such an intense topic, right? But we'll keep it just, kind of simple right now. But no, my mom and dad weren't really religious, but my mom had a strong connection to God. So my mom would pray every night, but we went to church maybe 4 times a year, something like that. And it was mainly for just the sentimental, the ambience, the music, the music in the church was just beautiful and things like that. But I would say definitely more spiritual. And I didn't become really that spiritual until the last 10 years of my life.
Yeah, I find more connection to God, universe, spirit, whatever a person wants to call it, sitting on a beach listening to ocean waves or walking through the mountains than I do sitting in a pew listening to a guy talk. The religion, I've always said from my young life, is the worst thing that ever happened to God. The man-made version of what our inner peace is. But going back to that, you've now taken that spiritual journey within yourself, and that has now allowed you to be a better coach, I would imagine, a better mother,
Oh,
I would imagine, a better friend, I would imagine, and a better companion to yourself, because we are the ones that we are the hardest on throughout those journeys and that healing process. So, how does your relationship in general with what I just mentioned changed since you've done the hard work of going inward?
everything changes. Everything. Once you connect to yourself, and when I say connect to yourself, I'm also talking about connecting with God, source, spirit, because it's through that connection and you get you get signs, you feel comforted, you feel protected throughout the day, which my printer's going off, it's saying yeah, like a confirmation, right?
Right.
So that's the universe helping us like confirm that it's like we get little signs that we're not alone, and building that connection and being devoted. I don't like to use the word worship. I like to use the word devoted, devoted to ourselves and devoted to God, source, goddess, spirit, however we want to refer to it as, because everybody has their own thing. So to have that foundation, I think is, in my opinion, crucial. I mean, it is so imperative, especially if you have lost yourself through toxic relationships, toxic situations. You have not used discernment in certain areas of your life, and there's shame and there's guilt and there's, all of those things that we can feel. And the way we can find ourselves again is through connection to ourselves and God. And so I feel like that foundation changes everything, because even though I may have some rough days here and there and things can happen and things don't always go my way, I still have my inner self, my inner power, my connection to God. And so it keeps me going.
And I mean, there's a lot of healers, a lot of coaches, a lot of spiritual people out there doing this work, and goodness knows there's a lot of it needed. So I'm glad that you're out in that, shining your light in your corner of the world. What is it that you tell people or tell the women you work with that helps them reconnect with that heart, body, and spirit? Because it's not just our soul, it's not just our body, it's not just our mind, it's the combination of all of it. And I have a really good friend of mine who does Thai massage is one of the things that she does in her practice. And she always says, our body has issues in the tissues, which means our trauma is stored in our body, and it physically
Mhm.
impacts, how we walk, how we feel, the aches and pains we have. And until we get the trauma out, the body can't heal. So what do you do to realign these women to bring them back to their true essence?
Mm. Well, there are many modalities out there, as we know. And for me, I can talk about what worked for me and why I am so open about what can work for other people. Because I don't claim to be the only person that can help somebody or my modality is the only thing. Because I think in some cases, depending on what you've been through, you can go through many modalities. And so again, the wisdom that I have and the fact that I've actually walked in the shoes of many of my clients' stories, many, and it might not be exactly, but similar. And I look at how I overcame it, and that's through, I had a mentor at the time. I still do. I have a spiritual teacher and mentor that I still work with. And, it's a lot of it's intuitive, intuitively being guided to kind of help people along and meet them where they are. But I also believe in an energy connection. So I feel like when, let's say, somebody works with a coach, if they feel like a sense of a good energy within, like a good frequency match, or they feel maybe a little bit elevated or activated by that person, they tend to want to work with that person. And then when that happens and you've got that good energy match, I believe personally that the sky is the limit because accountability is key, and I could not have done it without people that I went to. I mean, I've been through EMDR, okay, PTSD, coaching or modality. I've been through other things that are PTSD related. And I also had a teacher and I also had a therapist at the time. And so I just feel like any support that you can get where you can relate and feel, that energy match, that you're actually going to accelerate. And I feel like with a lot of my clients, I can say that many of them feel activated within the first week or two with working with me. And it's not that I'm saying it's me. This isn't coming from a place of ego. This is coming from a place of myself working with God and the divine, and also the hardships that I have gone through to get where I am. So it organically comes out of me, like it organically helps me to help them. So I don't even call myself a healer, but people on the outside tell me that, why do I feel different? Why am I doing that? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, so I feel like just that energy or the fact that you've been there and you can like be on their level and relate to them and then give them the tools of what they can do when these thoughts come in, the looping, the shame, the guilt, the self-doubt, all of that stuff. If you can give them tools to work on and do the baby steps, and then they're accountable to you, that's how we heal. That's how we heal.
I believe the accountability is the toughest part of what we do because people want surface. We're in such a instantaneous, microwavable society. Even I mean, I'm fairly older, and I remembered my father having to percolate coffee. And now people complain that, oh, the microwave's too slow for like 2 minutes. It's just ridiculous. So they want that instant bullet, that instant pill, that instant thing. And that's not where the healing is. The healing's actually in doing the hard work and going inward, not doing that first surface level acknowledgement that there's a problem or an issue or a trauma and just saying hi to it. It's actually digging past that and getting to the root and pulling that out. It's no different than gardening. If you just go out and garden and pull weeds and just pull the tops off, well, the root's still there and another one's going to replace it. You have to remove the root to remove the problem. And most people aren't willing to do that, which is why people are so effed up these days. If they would just go inward and do the hard work there, then the rest of life would get infinitely more joyous and better. So I think folks like you and I who have been through whatever it is, we do make good leaders and helpers and mentors and guides and coaches for others because we've been to the mountain and we know the path to climb. We're not just looking at a map trying to figure it out. So if a woman is coming to you, because you predominantly work with females, I'm sure you have a handful of men too, but predominantly women. So if a woman comes to you and says, Sana, I dread every part of my life, what can I do? Well, what's the first thing you tell her?
Thank you for watching Prospera TV Network. We hope you're enjoying the show. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
The first thing that I would do is ask about her childhood. I mean, because most of it stems from the childhood, inner family systems, inner child, and I mean, there's just no way around that. But the beauty of revisiting our inner child and our inner family systems is that we can understand that it's really not about us. It's about our caregivers. It's about what we've been told. It's not who we are. And so when we can see that, then we're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then when we can take it a step further, let's say with parents that have not been there for us, or, I deal with a lot of people that have alcoholics as parents, their father's an alcoholic or their mother's an alcoholic. Well, chances are their parents were an alcoholic or their grandparents. It's all ancestral. It's all up the line, right? That's why we talk about breaking the chain today, because now we're more aware. We didn't have all this spiritual training and all this growth training way back when. I wish we did, but we didn't. But now we're clearly seeing, okay, I can break the chain. And the way we break the chain is recognizing that it's not really about us or it's what we were told. And so I feel that that is crucial. And I will tell you, not everybody that's been to therapy has really done inner child work. I mean, I have worked with many people, and there's nothing against therapists, because I have some of my best friends are therapists, but I will say that you have to do that inner work. Otherwise, you're still going to be lost. And I've worked with a lot of people, that's what I was going to say, a lot of people that have been through therapists, and they'll come to me and they'll be like, how come I'm getting so much further? And the main reason is because sometimes, coaches are coached or taught to teach their clients to be in the present. Like, obviously, we want to know why they're doing what they're doing or making the choices and why they've gotten themselves in situations. But in the present, what can we do? And what can we do moving forward to retrain our bodies, to retrain our neural pathways in our brain? So it all goes together, but I do feel like there is a certain increment that, where people do need to go through that inner child work for sure, to be able to understand, because once we understand it, that's our foot in the door to healing.
Yeah, I'm now 60, and I acknowledged my problems from my childhood when I was in my 20s, and I thought, I'm good. And then I spent 30 years living various forms of hell because I never did it. And it wasn't until 2 years ago that I actually did that inner work. And I've said since then, I've been on this planet for 60 years, but I've only lived 2 of those. And
Mm,
I've lived all across this country because I used to throw a dart at a map and then just move every 2 years or 3. But I've never lived in any places. I can name each city I've lived in, but I can't tell you more than one fact about that city because I was never alive in those cities. I was
right,
existing. And
right.
it's not until you do that really deep excavation work that life, we come to this earth as a beautiful child, full of joy, potential, and happiness, and then whatever circumstances are surrounding us tends to tamp that down and push that down, and then we spend the next part of our lives living that, and then we
Mhm.
spend the last part of our lives trying to recover from that and rediscover who we were supposed to be when we first got here anyway. It's just I have a background in psychology, so the mind, when you were talking about the neuroscience, the mind just fascinates me. And one of the taglines for my business is where the woo meets the work, because
Mhm.
a lot of what you and I do, people consider to be, woo or, whatever. And what's funny to me is that it's all based in science. And if you really want to be religious instead of spiritual, it's based in the Bible as well. And you
Mhm.
can you can take anything that you and I have talked about, and you can directly find a Bible passage that directs you as a Christian or a believer to live the life we're talking about. So
Yes.
the circle is fascinating to me. And you spoke about energy and matching frequency with someone. And I'm so amazed at how many people, they believe in Wi-Fi, and they believe that we can get a cell phone or a video call like this from, thousands of miles away with no wires connected, yet they don't believe that we are energy and connected by the energy as well. Like, their disconnect in the disbelief just fascinates me, how you can see it and not believe it, you know?
Right. Right. I totally agree with you. And I think the way that people can maybe learn this, and not everybody's going to want to learn this or believe this, right? But they can believe it if they feel it.
Mhm.
So, like let's just say my older son, so he's now becoming more aware of energy. But before it was like, oh mom, like let me see where it's written. Where is it documented that no, 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 no. I'm like, all right, listen, it's energy. You feel it, you know it, just like feeling God is with you, just like knowing that a sign was just given to you purposely because you need to get that sign to move forward or whatever it is, right? So that's why I like my clients to feel it.
Yeah.
And they do, because I'm me, and I'm just, and I feel like when they feel that energy, you feel that frequency, like you and I, we have no trouble talking right now. So we're a great energy match. And so that's how you know, because you feel good around certain people, or you can feel open around certain people versus feeling shut down or intimidated or, wanting to be constricted. So that's where the energy speaks to us. It's
Yeah,
all
I
intuitive.
don't I don't see gravity, but I know if I step off a building, I'm gonna experience it.
Exactly. Exactly.
My wife is a Reiki master and a shamanic Reiki
Uh,
practitioner and a hypnotherapist, and so I see these clients that come to her, and they don't know what she's doing, but they know that it's effective, and the realignment of the energy and the inner side, they feel it, and it may not be immediately after they get off the table, but within a period of time they feel that alignment. And I often tell my clients, look, and I go back again, I'm aging myself, so I'm sorry, but turn on a radio. Like, if I want to hear rock music, I'm going to turn it to a certain dial. But if I want to hear country music, I'm going to turn it to a different dial. Well, the sounds and the energy are still there. I'm just not dialed into it. It doesn't just magically appear because I'm aligning with the frequency that it's already present in. And that's
yes.
how I'm attuned to it. Um, I often say to them too, our job as person is to be an authentic magnet. And a magnet has a positive and a negative side. So it both attracts and repels. And it does not care whether it's attracting or repelling. It just bees the magnet or is the magnet. So if
Mhm.
you are in your authentic alignment, the right people will be attracted to you and the right people will be repelled from you. And then I also tell them that their second job is to be a lighthouse. And a lighthouse doesn't run up and down the shore looking for boats. It stands in one spot, shines its light, and the right boats come to it. So if you're an authentic magnet with a lighthouse effect, you're going to be in your authentic self, and the right people will come to you and the right people will go away from you, and you will have that harmonious, joy-filled life.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. 100%. And so the question is, how do we get to that joy-filled, harmonious life? And that is through incremental changes every day, habits, and also having different modalities. Like I'm a huge advocate of Reiki, by the way. So I did a lot of Reiki. I did some shaman work as well. But I also had a mentor or a therapist at the time. Like I always had something to kind of keep me going and keep me growing. And what people don't understand is you're also telling your subconscious, I love myself, I care about myself enough to do this work, to have a mentor, to go do Reiki, to do this self love, to do this self care. And so when you're constantly feeding your subconscious all these things that you're doing for yourself that's good, that also boosts your inner self, your confidence, your empowered ability, self-love for yourself, because you're doing all the right things. Are we going to be perfect? No, this isn't about perfection, but it's about choosing every day the things that are going to help us grow and feel really good about ourselves.
Well, it's no different than a piano. Like, you can play beautiful music on a piano, but somebody eventually has to come with a tuning fork and get it back into the right frequency. And that's not, uh, uh, an everyday problem, but it does have to be retuned every now and again, and rebalancing your life, as you just said. I've told my wife for a long period of time, if you spoke to other people like you speak to yourself, you wouldn't have any friends. You got to quit beating yourself up, and that self talk and that self deprivation has to be released and go away, because it is powerful. And what's frustrating is, as an energy and an intuitive and an empath, she knows all this stuff, as do I. And we're our worst clients, right? Just like the mechanic doesn't have a car that runs so well. We,
But that's how you are. You're good at what you do because you've experienced it. You know how people feel. You've been there, so it's okay to have those down moments and to be empathic, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, I often express it's okay to rest. We just can't camp there. Like, this isn't gonna. We're not
Yeah.
building the Hilton. We're not going. We can rest. We can pause, but we do have to eventually move on. So, but I think, as you know, celebrating and remembering who you truly are, especially the female energy, is huge, because the women are the nurturers by societal nature. It may not be by genetic nature, although probably because they are the birthers,
Mhm.
but society wise, traditionally it is the female energy that is the nurturer, the healer, and the caregiver. And if that is damaged, well, us men don't have a shot in hell because we don't have, intuitively, we don't have it in us. And, frustration, anger, stoicism, those are the ones that society says men can have. But if we show the vulnerability and the softness and the caringness, now they turn to a skewed eye and go, well, what's wrong with that person? And that has to change, and it changes with the women in our lives. The greatest gift my wife has ever given me was the chance to be vulnerable, because until I met her, I never had that. All I knew
Mhm.
was anger and rage.
Mhm.
And when she brought her loving spirit into my sphere and allowed me to also do the same, that's when I could start to heal.
Yes, yes, that's very true. Because there'll be some people that say, "Oh, you get out of a relationship where you've gone through all this hardship throughout your life and all this loss and all of this trauma. You have to work on yourself." Well, that's true. But it doesn't mean that if you don't find someone that is a good match for you, that's willing to allow you to grow and allow you to be vulnerable, and they can work on their things at the same time, well, that's a beautiful harmony right there because you can both heal together. So, in my opinion, I do think that, let's say you're getting out of, a relationship, a difficult relationship like myself. I needed that time to be by myself for a long time. But then I knew when I was ready, but God had a different plan for me. He wanted me to do more work. So I've been doing all the work that I've been told to do here. So,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it
yeah,
doesn't mean that we can't be in a relationship, because we can simultaneously work on ourselves and then also uplift and support one another.
exactly. Elsa and I have been together for 10 years, and she often says, "Man, I wish we would have met earlier." And I remind her, we wouldn't have liked each other earlier. Like, we were both not in a place where this would work as well as it has in the 10 years that we've been together, because those people were not dealing with their trauma. Those people were, two rams on a field butting heads. So we met when we were compatible to be in this beautiful, loving relationship. In your bio, I'm going to switch for you just a second. In your bio, you talk about being intuitively guided. And intuitively guided, as a spiritual individual, I understand what that means. What does that mean to you? And when did you know you have it? Because that's a gift that is often suppressed until it isn't or
Mhm.
can't be.
Right, right. Well, we all have it. And even as babies, you talked about being pure souls when we're born. We all have that intuitive ability. I mean, kids are very intuitive when they're younger. I mean, they're a sponge. So we all have it. It's just that because we get caught up in the chaos of the world and the hustle and the keeping up with the Joneses and all of the external gratification, we do not connect with ourselves. So it's really quite simple. If we slow down and we take time out for ourselves every day, or let's say 3 times a week or whatever it is, I always work according to the person that I'm working with schedule. But it's taking that time out to slow down and really connect with yourself by doing prayer, meditation, maybe it's breathing techniques, whatever it is to really connect with yourself. And then it's getting into a place where you listen to what is being either said, what pops in your mind at the time, or it's something that might show up during the day, through a person, a song, numbers, something that happens. I mean, there's so many ways that the universe speaks to you, but it's something. It's just like when you're working out. Okay, you work on your muscles every day, and it's the same thing with your intuition. As we connect with ourselves and we stay, we do this meditational practice or prayer or whatever, and this could be 10 minutes a day, it could be 30 minutes a day, whatever it is for you. It's like building a muscle. So as we do that, we become more intuitive, more open. Now, I will tell you that when I was in quarantine and I was in my home by myself for 3, 4 months, all by myself, and in this place where I'd left a serious relationship and I knew my life was going to completely change and do a 180, and boy, has it done a 180. So, but when I was in this time frame, I was I was praying I was in meditation every day. I was praying for the world because everything was, we were in a big, hard, difficult time in the world. So I was giving of myself to pray for the world, which was part of my healing. But also, the more you meditate and the more you connect, the more you can calm your nervous system. You can learn to regulate your nervous system. Now, it was also along with a lot of belief systems, like the Buddhist beliefs and things like that, which is, non-greediness, non-lust, and all the stuff that goes along with those traditions, which are very, universal. But, along with those beliefs and the meditation, when you do that on a regular basis, you learn to really get grounded in your body. And so the biggest thing that I noticed coming out of this is that things didn't ruffle me as much. I was like, okay. And I stepped back and I would use discernment. I would be, okay, like, this is a good observation. What do I want to do now? So when you slow down from the hecticness, the chaos, the people pleasing, and you connect with yourself, you're telling your subconscious again, I love myself enough to do this and to build my inner core, right? It's about inner power. That's when you learn to regulate your nervous system. And that's when you learn to gain back your power, I believe, because you build your confidence and you build, like, oh my gosh, it's something that happens. It's kind of magical, to believe it or not. It's spiritual, it's magical, it's just a feeling that you get when you are devoted to this. And it doesn't mean you have to stay in meditation, 12 hours a day, like the monks. It just means self-care, self-practice, spiritual practice, when you can, on a regular basis.
And the beauty of it is that you can do it while you're waiting at a red light. You can do it while you're standing in line at the grocery store. You can do it on a walk through nature or wherever you are. It can happen anywhere, anytime. You don't have to sit on a pillow with soft, music going home all the time. It can be uh, a practice that you can do and fit into your life. And it's rebuilding the neural pathways to think differently, feel differently, and interact differently, not with just the world around you, but yourself. And once you do that, now you can be in harmony. So I think there's signs out there when we, as intuitive people, are around others. You mentioned how you and I are kind of in attunement, alignment. What do you notice most when you're out? Because you deal in a very big world. What do you notice most about when people are in alignment or out of alignment? What are the intuitive signs you can see that they just, that person is struggling or that person's, aligned?
I can feel it. I can feel it. I can tell by just looking at somebody. I can feel it. I can feel if there's still pain going on. I can feel if there's unresolved trauma. I can feel if this person has a beautiful soul. I'm really good at that. Um, yeah, it's just and this is a personal thing. I mean, everybody is intuitive in their own way. Some people can see auras, some people can see energy. I am more of like a feeler. I can feel it. So you just know. You just know. And also, their energy when they speak and how they treat you also shows like what kind of a person they are, if they're coming from a loving space or they're coming from their ego, which, being around a lot of big egos for a long time in many of my relationships, I am pretty good at, detecting whether or not somebody is working more from their ego. Now, a little bit of ego is okay. I mean, we all need a little bit, but when you're primarily working from your head space and you're not connected to your heart, I can tell. I can tell.
And it shows up quite often. It's My wife is like you. She feels the energy before it comes into the room, and she knows. I always joke with her. It's really difficult to not be able to even walk out of my office, and exactly everything that's going on in my head already. Like it's very frustrating to live with someone who's that capable all the time. But she's very gracious and generous, and I appreciate that she has that. But as someone who is in the realm that you are and walking your path and with the DNA in your life, I'm going to ask you the final question that I ask every one of my guests. What does a warrior spirit or having a warrior spirit mean to Sonna?
When you fall down, just getting right back up again, just getting back up again and conquering what you're going through, because that's resilience. That's what being a warrior is, just not giving up. And it's okay to be down for a while. I like to tell people, it's okay to feel through your emotions and to be down for a while, but you don't want to stay in there too long. Okay, so give yourself time to grieve, to process, but then get back up and do it all over again.
Here's why I know that you're good at what you do, because you said a very important thing right there. It's okay to feel your emotions. And I can't tell you how many coaches, mentors, guides in this space that I have come across that want to tell their clients, get over it. Well, getting over it isn't the right answer. Feeling your way through it and grow through it is how you actually help them embody the life they're supposed to live. And so that's how I know you're good at what you do, because feel it. It's okay to feel it. It's okay to do that part. And that's the part people avoid. They don't want to feel it, so they avoid it, so it carries with them. So I appreciate that you're in my tribe now and that we had the chance to do this. I thank you so much for joining me. And, let's do it again sometime when we can spend another hour together.
That'd be great. We can maybe focus on one aspect. Maybe it's relationships or, but yes, I really enjoyed this time too. I really have. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. And you have a wonderful, blessed day. And if you would like to get in connection with Sonna, sorry, you can connect on her website, sonnalife.com. You can also read more about her and her journey on Canvas Rebel and on all of her social media platforms. We'll have those in the show notes as well. And once again, I do want to thank you for joining us on this edition of A Warrior Spirit. Be sure to like or subscribe so that you catch all the episodes. And may you have a soul filled, beautiful day.
It's not just about the fight, it's how we rise from it. This is your Prospera era, where dreams align with grace, abundance flows like rivers. You've stepped into your place. Rise, reign, and remember, you were born to shine. Welcome to your moment, Prospera, it's time.
We hope you enjoyed today's show on Prospera TV Network. Make it a point to visit us on YouTube and catch all your favorite shows anytime you want. Interested in hosting a show of your own? Or advertising your business on our network? Contact Elena Rodriguez.